Alright, ladies and gentlemen, it has been a while since I've done one of these. Been a while since I've streamed to this channel in general, to be fair, though there haven't been a lot of game releases that have demanded my attention immediately over here. So, I guess to explain to those of you who are newer to the channel, especially all of you coming from the Linux video, thank you all for that by the way. So every 6 months or so, I like to try and take stock as to how things are going and what you can broadly expect going forward. I ended up skipping this in June, so there's going to be plenty to talk about. And so that you're not just staring at a blank screen, I decided that I'd start working on a follow-up to the Linux video. So I've spent a bit of time today messing around with CachyOS a bit more. And got Heroic installed, got Lutris installed, so that's all good to go. Spent a bit of time checking on a couple of Steam games, making more progress with Hades 2 while I was at it, so it's been a nice day. Alright, hang on a minute. Do I need to bump up the... Yeah, it looks like I need to bump up the bitrate on video. As you can probably tell, I am still getting everything sorted as far as... There we go, that's more like it. Now, let's see. Yeah, it's probably fine for streaming right now. Okay, I can fine-tune that later, I suppose. Alrighty, so that takes care of that. It's gonna take me a bit before I get this environment as I'm used to it, but you know what? It's similar enough to what I'm used to, since that I'm still using KDE Plasma, to where it should take, well, it should be relatively quick to get things acclimated, even if it's taking me a bit longer to figure out, okay, so I'm used to doing this in Ubuntu. How do I do this in Arch? So it'll take a little bit to translate that, but shouldn't take too long. Either way, so we'll go ahead and test a game that I've spent, well, my most played game on Steam, just to make sure that we're good to go. Everything should be relatively straightforward from here. Although this is a hardcore character, so we'll see if I end up getting murked. Just give me 1 second, I'm gonna knock down... Okay, didn't quite knock down. Just gonna keep volume to a minimum, given the circumstances.
Welcome, my friend.
Alright, I'll have that to look forward to eventually. So, how have things been going? Honestly, it has been quite the busy year, as you could probably tell based on purely the Linux video. The fact that it would have taken me a while just to get that sorted. 176 games or something like that I had to look through. Admittedly, I started working on it in October of last year, but even then, it took a while for it to reach the point where I was happy. Well, it took a while to look through everything. Although, I think the more interesting part the more interesting part for me for why it was so busy this past year wasn't even stuff strictly related to the review channel. Because I ended up getting... Well, I guess in order to explain why, I need to back up to, I think September of 2024, September of last year. So, around that time, that was quick. So, around that time, I needed to abide by a different schedule for my day job, and because of that, I had a lot less time that I could throw at the YouTube hobby, so that lasted for about 3 months. And during that time, effectively, all that I really had time for was trying to be consistent about something over on the Unscripted channel. Let's see, that should be fine. So, apart from minding something on the Unscripted channel, as well as just throwing all of my time at Satisfactory, wasn't much time for anything, really, around the end of 2024. And because of that, when I finally am able to get out of that scenario and am back to my normal routine, I think, okay, so what should I do now? I don't know if I can get anything sorted before the end of the year, but I think it would be good to try and do something small to try and get back into the swing of things. And what I eventually decided for that, portal phasing right into those guys, I'm gonna get myself killed. This isn't Hades. And this is a hardcore character, which probably means it's gonna end badly at some point, but it'll be fun. Either way, so as I'm looking at this, I'm trying to think, okay, what can I do? A video passes my feed, giving a hot take on an anime that I quite like. Now, seeing this initially, I think, okay, that's bait. Not worth engaging in. Ignore, carry on. And then I see it show up on my feed again, And out of morbid curiosity, I go over, well, mistake number one is I go to the creator's Twitter account and find out, oh, he made a 50-minute video talking about this hot take. And then after doing so, he then complained when people looked at the first 5 minutes, said, yeah, that's bait, not worth watching, and then stopped right there. Which had me sympathetic to an extent, as I understand feeling disappointed that, hey, I put in all this work, why are you not giving this a fair shake? And so I thought, okay, I'll give this a fair shake. I get the feeling I know where this argument is going, but we'll see if there's anything of substance here, and worst case scenario, I make a video out of it. I can try making a response video for the first time, see if it would be worth doing. But since that it has been a while since I've posted anything, I'll just post it to the Unscripted channel, even though it's technically a scripted response, but so be it. So, I post that and don't think too much of it. It gets a little bit of attention, nothing, well, something modest. And then as I'm streaming that Saturday, watching a bit of weeb shit throw a theatrical film's worth of cutscenes at me, I look over at my analytics while this is happening and think, hang on, why is that video suddenly getting a lot of attention? And year to date, it is now my most popular video ever on what had once been seen as a secondary channel. So I see that and think, oh, interesting. I can understand why that happened because given the topic was very different from my usual spiel, and given that it tapped into something that has more broad appeal, it makes sense to me why it got the attention it did, as it was very much lightning in a bottle of, okay, I have something interesting to say on this, it's a topic that's contentious that a lot of people are interested in, and I wasn't the first to the draw on it, but ended up being one of the videos that got more attention amongst that niche, so honestly, worked out great for me, so I see that and think, okay, I guess while I'm working on the Satisfactory review, I guess I can experiment with this a little bit more. So I put out a couple more. Don't get as much attention, obviously, because of the subject matter chosen, but think, okay, this is neat, this is interesting, this is a nice thing to try out. And end up, well, I can't shake a sense of uneasiness I'm doing it to an extent because I end up, well, the next couple of videos I made were on quote-unquote easy targets, which is a crass way of putting it, but effectively channels that, okay, yeah, you largely know what you're expecting from those, so it's not the most challenging to make critiques of. I activated it and I knew exactly what I was getting into and I'm still panicking. Lovely. Why am I doing that? So, and I end up making a couple of mistakes, treating them as learning experiences, and just minding my own business for the most part. Though,
not enough more.
It ended up being a useful experiment though, because as I'm seeing to this, as near the start of the year, well, near the start of this year I should say, it ends up being a valuable reminder as to just how unstable YouTube can be if you are trying to do it full time, because it's actually a similar reason why you don't see me make a whole lot of video essays either. With, I think the last one I did being a video on localization, I think end of 2023, I think at this point, something like that. I can't remember exactly when I put out the most put that one out. Oh hey chat, so Prangy gets warned in game, of course. Hope to get a reaction video soon, as always. Well, we'll talk more about that over on the Unscripted channel. For now, where was my train of thought? So, the reason why I had generally avoided doing a lot of video essays is because you end up in a certain trap if you're trying to do a lot of them or try and just throw everything you can at the wall and seeing what sticks. Because you can end up in a trap where, hey, I've got this topic that I think is interesting, but do I have enough of substance to say to fill out a 10 or I guess it's 8 minutes now to get the good ad rate? Well, a relatively good ad rate. So, 8 minutes to try and pad things out, so you can end up padding things out or reading too much into it or trying to engage in confirmation bias so that you can actually put something out to where there is a very strong negative connotation associated with video essays now. And a lot of that I didn't want to fall into because I've experimented with it in the past beyond what I have posted, and a lot of time it's just a matter of, I don't have a lot to say on this, let's not make the video. So I found myself falling into a similar well, trap is probably too strong of a word for the response videos, but very much a matter of, okay, so you can get something interesting eventually, but if you're trying to, as Chad points out, appease the algorithm, you can end up trying to do too much and overextending. So, ended up a matter of being, okay, be mindful of this. It's a nice thing that you can experiment with whenever the mood strikes, but don't treat it as something reliable. Although, arguably, you can treat almost anything on YouTube with that, because with how many people there are putting out videos, there's a lot of competition out here. Which, I mean, it means a glut of options here, even if a lot can get lost in the shuffle. I mean, you see that with pretty much everywhere, whether it be YouTube, gaming, pretty much everything you can think of is having that problem because so many people want in. Arguably, it's always been a problem, it's just the internet has exacerbated it. Still, more recently than that, as part of doing the response video experiment, I also occasionally get bullied by the Unscripted channel to do live video reactions, and those are usually entertaining when I can make time for them. And you can already see some of the Unscripted channel regulars explaining demanding the very same, and I am behind on the viewer requested stuff, to be fair. So, on that count, occasionally I'll get bullied into doing something like that, which, there's usually some interesting topics amongst there. You can definitely tell when I'm more interested in a topic than not, to be fair. But, still, a good time can be had by all. But, as part of this, to try and take more ownership of the format, I figured, okay, you know what? Let's see, what would I personally want to look at? Let's start throwing in more of what I'm personally interested in alongside the viewer requested stuff, just to see if there's...
Carry anymore.
How am I already... Oh, right. This is the first time I'm running this game in CachyOS, so I shouldn't be surprised at that. There we go. That should be good enough for now. Go.
Your pet has departed.
So, where was I? Alright, so, as part of this, I decide, okay, you know what? I've done a few response videos at this point, so let's put out a second shot reaction. So, something that I can put out to say, alright, so we looked at a few videos by a few different people, so if they take on a different topic, will things end any better? So that was the idea behind it, and it went about as I expected. But something that I ended up saying as part of that live stream has given me pause. The short version is that one of the people I ended up covering had put out a video effectively stating, or at least giving argumentation, for why he doesn't script his videos. This for someone who ostensibly does game reviews. Now, I hear that, I mean, you've seen the videos on this channel, I hear that and think, what are you doing? If you don't have a good argument in place, everything else is dust on the wind. Are you insane? Okay, I know you're insane, but... what? So I hear that and think, I want to hear more of why you think that's acceptable. And the argumentation that had been given in prior videos by this creator was effectively, don't stop caring about this so much, this is all disposable, why are you making a big deal out of this? Which, lame argument, why are you making this if it's really not disposable? Why are you trying to go full time if it's not disposable? If you don't care that much. Come on, you do care, own up to it. But the argument made in this particular video was a time constraint argument, because he was falling into a similar trap as the video essayist I had mentioned earlier, where it was a matter of, oh, I need to appease the algorithm. I'm at a point where I'm getting enough attention to where I can technically do this full time and have my own place and all that fun stuff for it, but not to the point where I'm able to say whatever the heck I want and operate on my own schedule. And to be fair, there's always going to be expectations with an audience. But what it boiled down to is, I do not currently have the attention I need in order to make this work without appeasing the algorithm, so I have to operate quickly, and don't necessarily have the freedom in order to take all the time with the script. The argument, the specifics of the argument fell flat for me. The game is a bit loud, you're kind of hard to hear. I thought I had knocked it down a bunch. Here, I'll knock it down even further. Shows you... hang on, I thought I had... Alright, here. That good? I thought I had checked it earlier, but then again, I hadn't been in the midst of gameplay when I did my tests. Okay, so how far back do I need to go on this? I don't think I'm hitting that guy. It's all the explosions? Fair enough. Well, let's see if turning it down, well, taking 10 decibels off the top make a difference. So, sorry about the poor audio quality. This is what I get for experimenting with a new OS for me, relatively speaking anyway. This is not my normal setup. Could end up being my normal setup, to be fair, but all in due time. Okay, everything looks good. I think it was where you said you do care. Alright, so I guess then to recap the argument briefly. So I was looking at a video live on stream where someone was saying, hey, attempting to give an argument for why he doesn't script his reviews, this being a game reviewer. I can understand you, but it was the threshold. Fair enough. So, it was that kind of argument. The initial argument was, don't stop caring about this so much, this is all disposable, which you do care, otherwise you wouldn't be making it. Bad argument. But the most recent video I was looking at gave an argument that said, hey, time constraints. I'm trying to do this full time. I'm getting enough attention to where I can, but not enough to where I can't afford to not appease the algorithm, as it were. So, because of that, hey, I need to be quick to the draw. I don't have time to script. I trust myself enough to speak off the cuff. And then if I need to, I can edit later, absent absolute necessity. Now, the fact that he is having to edit things later after the fact, that he, well, says to me, okay, you're just shoving the time that you would have had to spend further down the pipeline. That's not a good argument for me. But something that I ended up saying while refuting the points ended up sticking with me. Because I had made some comment about, well, because you think about that scenario where you feel like you're trapped and constantly on the treadmill. I think that, well, I see that and think, wow, that sounds awful. I'm glad I'm not in that scenario. It's probably a good thing that I'll always be a hobbyist for this sort of thing. And then I move on with the stream, don't think about it too much in the moment, but then as I'm wrapping it up and close it out, I think, hang on, where did that come from? Because you've been talking about wanting to do YouTube full-time for a very long time. In fact, you have the perfect example of this with the Pillars of Eternity review, which is something you had been talking about doing for a long time. You were going to learn how to draw, completely shake up the visual component, do a lot different with it to try and stand out, not just do the, hey, I'm going to talk to you, use very basic title and thumbnail, that sort of thing. You were going to try and distinguish it a fair amount. And yet, where is it? I can already tell that I'm going to get the comments in chat, the Pillars of Eternity review, it's never going to happen. I know that's what you're going to say. And one can hardly blame someone for coming to that conclusion because the streams that I did of that happened in 2021. I keep saying that I'm going to be putting this effort in, and yet, has that really been reflected in how I've been acting? Why are you not breaking? Okay, come on. There you go. And I'm jumping the gun a little bit by talking about that, but that's effectively what it boiled down to, is that I keep talking about doing all of this. I have all of these grand plans of what I'd like to talk about and what I'd like to do to try and differentiate, and yet half of my actions actually lined up with that. And what it boiled down to for me is when I say that, I mean, that was a genuine sentiment at one point, even if my actions didn't reflect it. But is that, well, is that something that I said in the heat of the moment because reflexively disagree because I don't like you? Or is there genuine sentiment behind it now? And what it boiled down to after thinking about it is that I think there is some genuine sentiment that it's probably for the best that I do remain a hobbyist, and that I'm not trying desperately as of right now to appease the algorithm and get all the attention. Because if I truly did care, well, sure, if I was able to get the Pillars of Eternity review to look the way I wanted it to on initial glance, it probably would have helped a decent amount, might have gotten a decent amount of attention, but given that a video that I put considerably less time into than I've put into the Pillars of Eternity review is literally my most popular video ever, how much does that matter? Is it just more a matter of, hey, quick to the draw on the exact subject and all the other things you have to consider. Am I truly prepared to play the algorithm game? And the answer is that I certainly haven't been. Frame rates seem to dip. I wonder why. What I get for staying in X11, but OBS isn't quite able to handle it yet. At least for my use case. Do I have too much going on my computer? Maybe. Kashi, what? Well, Heroic should be close by now. Oh well. So, it ended up being a circumstance like that, where it made me reflect and realize, okay, are you willing to put in the effort to go full time in the sense that you were initially thinking of? And honestly, I need to check something. Honestly, if I really did care about standing out, well, you would have put in the effort for the Pillars of Eternity video by now. And you know what? It's not even necessarily a bad thing that you've gone the way you have, because for you right now, it's a fun hobby. You threw a lot of time at the Linux video, and that effort was rewarded, thankfully. Not to the same extent as the response video, but then again, are you necessarily surprised by that? It is a relatively niche topic within the gaming sphere, so are you necessarily surprised? So, in that sense, I think watching that video, it made me appreciate the freedom I have when I'm just a hobbyist, where, oh, I want to spend months of effort over the, well, I want to spend hours, well, dozens of hours of effort over the course of a few months talking through how effective Linux is for gaming right now, using an intentionally unideal setup. Yeah, I can do that. And there's a lot of freedom in that. And am I willing to give up that freedom to try and make it the full-time gig, when I'd have to pursue stuff that wouldn't be as fun for me? Honestly, probably not. Given the circumstances, probably not. And honestly, even if I wanted to, is that even advisable right now? I mean, I am the proud owner of a mortgage, and that was not the case 2.5 years ago, so do I even have the luxury to act that way, given the circumstances? So, ended up giving me a lot to think about in that respect. But either way, if it happens, cool. But it's not something that I will be pursuing with the same gusto. So, what will this mean for my time spent on YouTube overall? Honestly, not much. I think that's probably the funny part, is that the only difference is that mentality is aligning with action. That's really what it boils down to. Yeah, most big YouTubers got in the early days and found their fan base then. Yeah, and it's not as if you don't have up-and-comers show up, it's just a hell of a lot harder. So, why is the frame rate such crap right now? Is that just me? I'm gonna have to dig back on that later. Is there something I'm doing wrong with the OBS setup, maybe? Recording. It's using the same setup that I'm using otherwise. Yeah, that should be fine. Maybe if I change that up. I'll have to go digging into that later. Maybe play this a little bit on my own time, dig into that. Sure, I'll find something interesting digging further in. Either way, so as far as the review channel is concerned, it's pretty much going to be business as usual. It's going to be, I have a game I want to talk about, I talk about it, and if it ends up being a big video, it's a big video. If I don't have a lot to say on it, it'll be a small video. And honestly, there's a lot to talk about. So, I guess before I get too far into details on that, let's go ahead and see what chat's been up to. The algorithm is made of hate? I wouldn't necessarily say that, although to be fair, given what I was focused on, I suppose, well, given what ended up popping off on the Unscripted channel, I suppose I shouldn't be surprised. Let's Plays used to be very popular? Yeah, pretty much. Everything has its time in the sun. Let's see. Let's see, what else is in here? Alright, so there's the audio talk. Here we are. So, the video is in Deadpell. I'm assuming that's what you're referring to. Let's see. Most bigger full-time YouTubers have a team, or at least editors? Pretty much. Because once that you get to that size, you're able to... Well, once that you have the consistent base that you can draw from, although even then, there can be a lot of instability. Because you'll see rise and fall of stuff like Machinima all the time. See, when everyone's super, no one is? Fair enough. Either way, so... Let's see. Let me pull up my notes real quick. There we are. So... Ended up being very good... Well, ended up being a good point of reflection. So, that in mind, enough talking about the past. What exactly can you look forward to going forward then? Well, I think the only major difference is that I'll be siphoning a little bit of time to focus on my game dev ambitions, because I do want to actively pursue those now. At least more so than I was. Stop using the, oh, I'll learn to draw with the Pillars of Eternity video. No, stop using that as an excuse. Start coding already, you idiot. So, should be a grand old time. I could even make live streams out of it if I care enough to, though that's probably a few months away while I get myself situated and get everything sorted. I'm expecting next year to be very busy in a lot of ways, and not least of which because of all there will be to talk about with respect to gaming as well, because just looking over, well, I guess first let's start with the two long-term projects on the docket. So, the main one of interest to watchers of this channel primarily would be a follow-up to the Linux video, because that's been the most popular one I've put out over the last year, and over the last years at this rate. I don't think I've had a video do this well since the Torchlight 2 retrospective. So, that in mind, what exactly can you expect on that front? Well, the first one was very much a matter of, I'm going to choose this scenario that I know for a fact is not an ideal scenario, where I'm going to be doing a long-term service version that's not going to be bleeding edge, that's going to be made more for office environments instead of gaming. And we're going to see how well it holds up for gaming. And decent amount of problems, and along the way, a lot of people said, hey, use CachyOS, hey, use this other thing, use Heroic instead of Lutris for GOG games. You've got all these options, use them. Okay, let's follow up on that. So my plan as of right now is that every game that had even the most minor issue imaginable is going to be replayed in the current OS. So, I'll need to make note of performance hitches for this one, apparently. Maybe I should start a... Interesting. I wonder if it would do any better if I went into Wayland. Or maybe. Because I'm currently using X11 because of the OBS issue, but... I guess that'll be the first check. Second check is going to Kubuntu and see how that looks. And that is going to be part of the plan for it, is that I'm going to be doing a bunch of different things different. So I may as well list them, well, since I've got them listed out. First things first, I will be working near exclusively out of this OS at least once a week. So that means I need to make sure that not only will the gaming that I do work okay here, I also need to see if the rest of my workflow does well. I've got most of the software I use reinstalled on here, and it seems to be working well enough, but I guess time will tell as to whether it holds up in that respect. 2. Every game that had prior issues gets retested. 3. Every new PC game I buy gets tested. 4. Troubleshooting and fixing will be more aggressive, so I'm going to be much more actively seeking out solutions than I did before, instead of just trying to wave it off as, okay, this is going to be too complicated to dig into. I'm going to be more actively pursuing that. And most importantly, I will be switching to Heroic instead of Lutris for the GOG games, though I will still have Lutris in my back pocket if I believe it would be helpful. And, well, which I think will allow me to access my cloud saves too. That's the exciting part, at least for GOG games. And along with that, anytime I do run into some kind of issue that can't easily be fixed, or which I believe may be something exclusive to either the environment I'm in or to the compatibility layer, I'm going to be digging out the... Well, okay, why is the frame rate struggling? What is this? Is this just a... Yeah, I'm gonna have to dig into that. Is there some setting I can mess with? I did bump all the settings high. Hey, I'll have to experiment with that. Okay. Either way, for now then. Let's see, where was I? Yeah, deal with this. There we go. So, in order to ensure that it is an issue with either the Linux environment I'm in, or that it's a compatibility layer issue. Hello, brother. Goodbye. I'm going to be rerunning. Well, what's the right word? I'm also going to be examining any game that has trouble in Kubuntu, which is my current main, as well as in Windows 11, now that I've got the dual boot set back up. What games are going to be playing next? Well, for the Linux video, it's going to be everything that had problems. For the Unscripted channel, we can talk about that over there. Let's see. Well, mostly it's just finishing up Xenoblade over there, then back to Silksong. That's the plan, anyway. But we'll have that to look forward to. And that's going to be one of the main projects I focus on over the course of the next year, though I don't expect there will be a video ready for it quite yet. At least that's my expectation. I'm fully expecting that there's going to be that it's going to take me a while to whittle through everything, because even if we only look at the games that had problems on the Linux video, that's still something like 97 games, not depending on how you count expansions and bundles. It's gonna take a while. So, with that in mind, we're just gonna have a lot to work through, so best thing I can do, just barrel on. Okay, what is this frame rate? Why is it so choppy? I'm gonna keep pointing it out until I figure out what the heck's going on. Oh, perfect. So, that'll be one major thing I work on, but not something you'll see for a while. The thing that I am hoping to get out this year is to finally have something to show for my efforts on the Fire Emblem Engage critique. I don't know when exactly, and it could end up getting bumped off to later depending on what I have to say on Fortune's Weave when that comes out. Because, I mean, I talked to death about Three Houses. I'd be surprised if I didn't have something of note to say on Fortune's Weave as well if you're going to the same world. Which, please be good, please learn the right lessons from Engage. I am going to have so much to say on both of those games if you mess it up. So, I'm going to be looking to make a decent amount of progress on that. Assuming that, well, Fortune's Weave will likely take priority, but I am hoping to at least have something to show for my efforts by the end of the next year. That's the planning. As for what you can see in the short term, that's going to be the fun part. Oh. That is going to be the fun part, because there's a lot of small stuff that came out, well, small relatively speaking, that I probably wouldn't want to make the hours-long videos on that I think would be interesting to talk about. And a lot of them have come out in the last few months too, which is the fun part. Because you've got, what, Hades 2, where they made significant revisions to the story as part of an update, which I'm sat there thinking, huh, fascinating. Why'd that happen? Why'd you do that? Is there a reason you did that? Why do I keep mixing those two up? And I've dug more into the story, and I definitely want to talk about it to some extent. I just don't know exactly what the time frame will be, or if that ends up being all I talk about with respect to Hades 2. Because is it a Star Wars Special Editions kind of deal? Did they actually fix up some legitimate errors? I think there'll be something interesting to talk about there with respect to that, especially since we don't see story revisions very often within the gaming sphere. Because game balance we are well accustomed to getting updates on. Bug fixing we are especially accustomed to. Story revisions, that's a hell of a lot less common once a game has been pushed into 1.0. So that I'm going to be very curious about. And very interested in talking about. Jay noticing half a frame drop? It's more than half! When will we get a new game or Looking Glass review? Talking about that right now. I'm not sure about Looking Glass. I do have something in mind for CRPGs once I'm done with Pillars of Eternity, but I'll talk about that later. That'll be more for Unscripted channel to note once we get closer to time. Still, putting that aside, what else is there to note? Yeah. Let's see, what other games came out? Let's see. Metroid Prime 4. That one is absolutely being talked about and is going to be priority 1 the moment I'm done here. So, heck, tempted to start streaming that over on another channel as soon as, well, not as soon as I'm done with this. I should still get dinner, but still, haven't been able to stream it as well, get through the game as quickly as I wanted to, as, I mean, it's the Christmas season, there's always something going on. I shouldn't be surprised by that. But I got a lot to say on it, and I'm not even, and I suspect I'm only approximately halfway through. Maybe 2/3 of the way if I'm lucky, given what I've heard. So, based on that, I suspect there's going to be all sorts of fascinating things to say. So that'll likely, I would be surprised if that was not the next video, let's put it that way. I would be very surprised if that's not the next video. So we'll have that to look forward to. Let's see, I'm trying to think of what else has been coming out. Let's see, what was on my list? Oh yeah, Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. I'm nearly done with that game, need to wrap up a little bit of the end game. Don't have too much to say on it. I've got a mostly finished script that's about 15 minutes at my usual speaking cadence, based on the word count on the Word document. Well, LibreOffice document, I guess, but still, you get the point. So, not too much to say on it. It might make for something nice to throw in, just in between other things, if I need a break from the Engage review. So, it won't be high priority, but it'll get there eventually, I think. It's not high priority, though. And then, Pokemon Legends ZA. Still don't own a copy of it. Probably would like it enough based on what's been said about it. I do have some trepidations, and it seems that the trepidations were confirmed. But, well, should be fascinating one way or the other. Should be fascinating one way or the other. I get the feeling that I'll end up with a copy with it eventually, if only because I'm living with my brother right now, who is a fanatic when it comes to, well, not fanatic when it comes to Pokemon, but he is a big fan of it. So, if only to hand off my copy of it eventually to him, or share with him, I'll probably end up with a copy eventually. Whether I'll have enough to say on it to be worth discussing, that remains to be seen, but should be fascinating. And that's not including any of the stuff that'll be coming down the pipeline, like Fortune's Weave or Palworld. So, there's a lot to look forward to. And as for Through the Looking Glass, I'm not entirely sure when I'll be putting another one out. I guess it'll depend on what I have time for, but given that the sheer glut of games and everything else is showing no sign of slowing, I'm not entirely sure when I'd even be able to at this point. I guess it'll depend on when I can stream it. Because I guess since that there's some of the Unscripted channel regulars here, I think the plan over there right now is to wrap up what I'm doing with the current Xenoblade game I'm on. After that, loop back around, wrap up Silksong, and then play a CRPG, and then loop back over to wrap up what's left of Xenoblade, assuming that we don't get a fourth game coming out in between now and then. That's my plan as of right now, and everything else can be tossed over into the game dungeon, which is another spot if I want to just spam live streams and where I've been putting the Metroid Prime stuff. That's what I'm thinking as of right now. So let's see, is there anything important I need to address in chat before I move on to the next topic? Because I think that's everything that I needed to talk about except for the final video for the year. So let's see. Okay, they're making fun of me for noticing frame drops. Well, the preview window is only 30 FPS, so it might not be noticeable that it's an inconsistent frame drop. Well, I do have my... Come on, bring up the right document. Okay, Torchlight 2. Alright. Same launcher issue. Performance trouble while streaming. Alright. And test date of today. Alright. Set that as minor issues for now. Alright, investigate. Alright, that should do. Is there anything else I need to worry about? Okay. Looks like I mentioned everything that's on the docket. Anything from chat? I don't expect a new Xenoblade game till 27? That's probably fair. Is that actually... How long was the distance between... Actually, now I'm curious. Xenoblade 2 came out 2017. The third game was 22. Okay, that's fair. That's entirely fair. Let's see. And then we need Dark Souls some days to... So you have your fill of me getting beat up. Well, you'll get a bit of that in Silksong once I get back to that, to be fair. Either way, that should be all from me as far as important stuff. Let's see. I think all that's left then is just to talk about what the final video of the year will be. Because, I guess, as a quick wrap up, so it was a year filled with introspection to try and figure out where I'm going to be long term. And I'm going to be remaining as a hobbyist for the foreseeable future and will not be as actively seeking out to try and make this a full-time gig. But that then gives me the freedom to talk about whatever the hell I want, so I'm very much looking forward to acting upon that. So we've got a couple long-term projects and a few smaller games I'm looking to talk about. Don't have any explicit timelines on when anything will be ready, but Metroid Prime 4 will likely be the first on the list. So, as part of the move to try and get to that point, the final video of the year for the review channel, well, I had put a simple rule for myself. I wasn't allowed to talk about the Pillars of Eternity review until it was ready. It's ready. I scaled back on pretty much every ambitious thing I had planned to do with it. So, just did my usual style for visuals, just gameplay with basic commentary. Well, I hope not basic commentary. I hope it'll be interesting. Freudian slip much. You really don't see yourself. Well, whatever. You can psychoanalyze yourself later. So, either way, you get a fairly long-winded video talking about a CRPG that I quite like. And a decent chunk of it is spoiler section, but I think the video turned out okay, given the circumstances. Got to revise the beginning and ending a bit, got to fix up some arguments, refocus them a little bit. Hopefully it'll be up to this, hopefully it'll be up to the standard that I've been trying to uphold and trying to improve upon over the course of the last year or so. So, yeah. There we are. So, Pillars of Eternity review available right the heck now. So, with this, we close the book on that. Now, I get to look to the future and just look to all the exciting stuff coming down the pipeline. Let's see, will there be a React video this year? We'll see to that on the Unscripted channel. Either way, I think that's all that needs to be said. So, I think let's see. Yep, that should be all. Alrighty then, so rather than repeating myself, I'll just say that if you want to see what else I'm up to, want to get a sense for how things are going, the post section on the YouTube channel, I post monthly updates there, as you could guess. So I'll be posting a brief TLDR of this stream over there if you missed anything or want to look on something a bit more, look on a summary of this. I'll be posting monthly updates as to overall progress on what I'm working on right that very instant, and hopefully giving proper progress updates over there. As for what else I'm up to, I've got the Unscripted channel where I'm doing weekly live streams, just consistently working away at one game, as well as occasionally diverging to talk about other stuff, which the reaction stuff I'll need to make time for at some point. Although, I do have the next 2 weeks off, so in theory I could do a marathon of some sort for that New Year's Eve, but I do have to be up that morning though. Worth thinking about. And then apart from that, I've got a new channel I created called The Game Dungeon, which I'm using whenever I want to spam live streams with reckless abandon and not chase off the audience I cultivated from putting out a random response video. So, you'll be seeing a decent amount of activity on both of those, so if you ever want something more up to date as to what I'm working on and what I'm up to, it will be there. So, there's also a good chance that I will be going back to that tonight. Let's see, I'll need to get dinner, but honestly, I want to get back in Metroid Prime 4. I want to finish that game. I don't think I'm far enough in that I can finish it yet, as I still have, I think, the fifth and final major area, I think, before we reach endgame, but either way, plenty to look forward to. So, with that in mind, that is where we will call it. So, plenty on the immediate vicinity, plenty to look toward on the horizon. So, I guess then, as always, J is ant level? What's that supposed to mean? No matter. Either way, thank you all for stopping by. Thank you for listening to my insane ramblings. And thank you especially for all the attention paid to the Linux video and for all the very good feedback on that. I look forward to eventually putting out something for that to follow up on in 2 years' time, knowing my luck. It probably will be 2 years at this point. I mean, once a week, assuming I'm knocking out 3 games a night, in theory, I could get most of the tests done within a year, but that doesn't mean I'm going to be working swiftly, and you'll have stuff like Halo the Master Chief Collection where, oh, you've got multiple expansions, quote-unquote, multiple games within that bundle treated as a singular entity, and it's going to take a while to get through everything. Gonna take a long time to get through everything. Still, should be a grand old time. Till then, thank you all for stopping by. I hope the year has been as good for you as it has been for me. Relatively speaking, anyway. And, as we look ahead, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and if I don't see you over on the Unscripted channel or the Game Dungeon, I will see you all in the new year. Till then, take care.